Good morning, John Day, United Methodist Church. Welcome to the start of Holy Week. You have journeyed throughout the worship series, Broken Vessels, where you have actively sought healing, the presence of God being woven throughout your journey. This morning is no different. We come together as we are to worship God, to prepare our hearts and minds for this week. And so I invite you to breathe deeply, to prepare your body and your mind and your heart for worship this morning as we continue with our story. Know that people all over the world in different states and countries are also doing the same thing. We are interconnected in this special way. I wish that I could be with you all. Know that I am in spirit and in prayer. So I had the opportunity to travel this week to see my sister and her family. I'm the oldest, and then she's my second, the second born in my family. She has 4 beautiful children and is also a foster parent and is moving toward adopting the infant that she has in her home now. And so I was really wanting to meet him and be able to spend some time. She's also an artist and has a show up in downtown Vegas. She's a painter, and so I wanted to be able to see her art in a gallery, which is really exciting. So I was very excited for this trip. But one of the things that has happened over the last couple of years is flying has become sort of a big stressor for me. I'm not actually afraid of flying in the airplane, the whole like going through the sky at hundreds of miles an hour. That part I'm okay with. I've been flying since I was very young. It's more the airport time. Of course, the stress of COVID and everyone wearing masks, I think, raises the tension level to some degree. But also just the amount of people and the patience that it takes to wait in line and wait to get on the plane and wait to get off the plane. And really, I think it's sort of this feeling of a lack of control. And so as I boarded my first flight on my way here to Nevada, I started to feel my stress level go up and I started to get more and more tense. And as the flight went on, I felt the tightness in my back and I just wasn't in a great place. And so I had a layover in Salt Lake City and I decided, I think during that layover, I'm just going to go to a restaurant at the airport and I'm going to sit and have a snack and just sort of breathe a little bit. So I got to the restaurant and I don't know if you remember, but sometimes in an airport, they have those restaurants where there are tables that face out. So you can see sort of the whole corridor where people are walking by and hustling to their flights. And I, for the first few minutes of my time sitting at one of those tables, I was really just kind of zoning out and trying to calm myself from the stress that I had been feeling from my travels. But the longer I sat there, the more things I started to notice, the more people I started to notice, and the details about the people that were traveling. There were moms with 2, 3, 4 kids trying to juggle all of their bags and usually carrying one or had, some of them had front packs with babies and strollers. There were older people who were walking slowly and having trouble making it to their gate. There were folks being pushed in wheelchairs. There were people from all different places. Salt Lake City is a pretty big airport, and so there was a wide range of diversity. And as I sat there and watched all of these people on their journeys, sort of just doing the best they can to get where they needed to go, my heart started to open a little bit, and I started to breathe and think about each one of those individuals and how they really were just doing what I was doing, trying to get from point A to point B with as much patience and grace as they possibly could. In both of our stories this week involve people just doing the best that they can. In the midst of their lives, going where they need to go, doing what they think they ought to do. In our opening scripture, Jesus tasked his friends, the disciples, to try to find him a donkey. I imagine that maybe as they ran to find one, they were worried. Would they be able to find what he needed? Would it be the right size? Would it be there when they got there? Trying to do the right thing. Anyone watching may have seen the stress in their eyes, in their hurry, their rush to get there. And then the folks in the city into which Jesus rode were confused about who he was. What was this strange parade that was taking place? It says in our scripture that the city was actually in turmoil. That's a pretty strong word. People were hurrying around, trying to get to where they needed to go, confused about what was going on. They were divided and suffering. In our second story from Matthew, we hear about friends carrying a man who was unable to walk, living their life, maybe hoping for someone to come and help, but also maybe resigned to the fact that they may be carrying him for the rest of their life, every single day. And as I read these stories, I couldn't help but notice the parallels, the human condition in both of these scenarios. About all of us, both in the past in these stories and the present, doing the best we can in our turmoil, in the authentic struggles of our life, in our brokenness. In the communion liturgy that I was going to use this morning, we hear that Jesus healed the sick, fed the hungry, and ate with those considered to be too broken for company. When people are sick and hungry and broken, when they're traveling, when they're trying to raise children, get through their life, we are vulnerable and we're less put together than we ever are. I know that over the course of the last several weeks throughout this Lenten series, you all have been exploring, reflecting on broken vessels, about the authentic and sometimes difficult process of healing. The good news is that we can be released from the burden of perfection. Not only are we met by a God who isn't afraid of our brokenness, but through Jesus we learn that we are deeply loved and forgiven just as we are. And sometimes we get it wrong. It's hard to believe that this Holy Week is all about love. It's too tender. Sometimes we think instead that it's all about judgment, about the ways in which we put Jesus up on the cross. But the truth is, Jesus was doing what he did throughout his whole ministry. The whole revolution he was leading was all about God loving all people and about how far God would go to show us that over and over again. It's hard to believe, especially in all of our brokenness. But this week, we are beckoned to join Jesus, to be present alongside him. There's this tradition in our faith where on Holy Week, and this is similar to Advent as well, there's a tangible response that we are called to. We are present in the practices that he preached. Today, we become part of the parade. I know that as you entered the worship space, you were given a palm branch to wave. That is where Jesus offered himself to the crowds, as he stops to see people who were not maybe normally seen, to heal those who were forgotten. On Thursday, we will watch as he bends down, taking dirty feet into his own hands and washing them. And like him, this week we will break bread with people who are also broken. We will sit alongside Jesus in silence and darkness on Good Friday and listen carefully to his last words. when he utters the unimaginable from the cross, that all of us, even us, are forgiven and loved. So the truth is, the reason that I can't be with you all this morning is because my flight to come home got delayed and then canceled. And well, the whole thing has just been far less than perfect. I was pacing around this morning and stressing out and wanting so badly to have control, to show up at church with everything all organized for Holy Week. And then it hit me. I had the opportunity in all of this to practice what I preach. If I believe that Jesus did and does show up in our real lives, I can release what I think this Palm Sunday morning has to be. And as I was reflecting on this, I felt a little tug on my shirt. That little tug was Lou. Lou is 3. He's one of my nephews. He's the 4th born in the family. He's very high energy, and he is working so hard on his words, but he gets frustrated a lot because he can't communicate what he wants or needs. Lou also has 5 desert tortoises. Well, the family has desert tortoises, but they're Louie's favorite. And every day he goes and feeds them with his mom. It's his favorite thing. And while I've been here for the last couple days, I've been able to go with him. We walk out together carrying bowls of fresh vegetables, all chopped up. And when we get there, you sort of walk around this cement wall and there's a few chairs. And when we kind of gather around, and Louie looks around at all of us and says, "Sit, please, sit." Because he knows that if we all sit, it means that we'll be staying there for a while. And what a joy that time is and has been. Louie comes alive. His face lights up as he exclaims as each tortoise makes its slow journey across the cage to get the food that we have brought. It really is a beautiful, God-filled time with my little nephew, Lou. And that morning, yes, Saturday morning, as I was pacing around worrying about Palm Sunday, he said to me, "Come, Aunt Cole, feed tortoise. It's time to sit." As we stand with our toes on the edge of the diving board of Holy Week this morning, I invite you to authentically engage in the story of love as you are, because it's a gift moving through Holy Week as a broken vessel. The truth is, sometimes when we just open our hearts where we are, present in the moment, we see Jesus there all along. For me this week, it means no collar, no robe, no official sacraments or candles to light, just babies and middle schoolers and all the ages in between, and tired parents doing the best they can, and all of us just doing the best we can in the world. So all you're asked to do this week is to take the action to show up. And as Lou would say, let's all sit down. May it be so.